Satish said I must speak about innovation, leadership, and how startups are different from corporates and how they're able to do this. So I'll tell you one nice, very interesting incident that happened recently. A CEO of a company, about 600 odd crores, he reached out to me and said, can you please come and help us innovate? We're struggling, we've been growing so well for the last so many years, but suddenly in the last few years our growth has stalled, we're not able to grow, so we want to innovate. I said, okay, we can innovate, but why do you want to innovate? And somebody had told him, he had read in some book, he had attended some event like this where they said, if you innovate, you will grow. So he called me and said, please help us innovate. I said, okay, I'll come. And it was fairly obvious that that company was not ready to innovate. But anyway, since he had called and I knew the person through a reference, I went, attended a couple of meetings. At the end of the second meeting, I told him, look, your company is not ready to innovate. And the reason was very simple. The CEO was so keen on innovating, he said, I will personally innovate. So every Wednesday, second Wednesday of every month, he fixed 2 to 5 as innovation time. And he called all his senior managers and blocked their calendars and said, first Wednesday of every month, 2 to 5, we will meet in the conference room and innovate. I attended 2 meetings and I told him innovation doesn't work like this. You can't innovate 2 to 5 on a Wednesday afternoon. Innovation has to be done by everybody in the organization. It has to happen anytime. It can happen anywhere. And innovation, your job as the CEO is not to innovate. Your job as the CEO is to create an atmosphere for allowing others to innovate, and that's a big difference. If you're running an organization and you're keen on getting into innovating and doing some interesting stuff, don't personally start innovating. I think you have to understand there is a way of innovating. There is a way innovations work. You also have to understand type of innovations. Most people wrongly believe that innovation means creating a new product that has never been created by anybody else so far in the world. If you're waiting for that to happen, it will never happen. Because most of the unique products has been created. Till of course some new product gets created. But if you wait for that, you're not going to innovate. 99.9% of innovations in the world are what are called process innovations. A process innovation essentially means you're doing the same thing that has been done by others before, but you're trying to do this differently. You're trying to do this in a different manner. You're trying to change the process. You're trying to change the approach so that you get results that are either better or faster or cheaper. So the first thing about innovations is you don't have to personally innovate. You have to create an atmosphere for innovating. And remember, it can be done by anybody in your organization. You must have been receiving these. There are lots of WhatsApp forwards that everybody gets about jokes and all of them. But some of them are actually quite interesting. And you may have received this one about how there was a big automobile that got made and then they managed to get it inside a garage, but they couldn't get it out simply because the roof was hitting, and people came up with all sorts of ideas. Somebody wanted to break the roof, somebody wanted to burn down the building, somebody wanted to do all sorts of things, till the watchman who was standing there said, why don't you just deflate the air so that the height goes down, it'll go out. I mean, it's fairly simple. And I'll tell you a very interesting story about innovation at the end, so that I can wake all of you up and then you can clap. Right now you can still sleep. But I'll tell you a very interesting story of the most interesting innovation and how it was done. Let's talk about the other interesting thing. The other interesting thing is scale. You know, like innovation, and I will link this back as to how startups do this, the definition of scale has changed. About 15, 20 years back in India, if you were running a company and you had achieved 100 crores, then you had reasonable scale. Reaching 1,000 crores was a huge landmark. Just a few days back, TCS, after so many years, reached a market capitalization of $100 billion, right? That's a big, big thing. But the reason the definition of scale has changed is you go back, and while obviously TCS deserves every single congratulation for this great achievement, the question is, how long did it take? The reason the definition of scale has changed is it is no longer about how large can you grow, but how large can you grow in how short a time, which means what is the pace of growth. Do you know which is the company that has scaled the most ever in the history in the shortest period of time? Yeah, some of you have to wake up and answer. Amazon, okay. Facebook, eBay. You know, so the good thing I like about these answers is, what is common about all these answers? They're all companies that started in the last 20 years, right? None of you ever came back and gave me a name of Coca-Cola, right? All these companies that are innovating and growing at this pace and scaling are all companies that started in the last 20 years. That's the good news. The bad news is the answers were all wrong. The company that has scaled truly the fastest is Uber. 7 years back, the company didn't exist. Today, they're in 75 countries, 500 cities, and next year they're going to do, and don't clap, I didn't do anything for it, so please don't start clapping now. I thought somebody was starting clapping, I have nothing to do with it. Next year, this company is likely to do an IPO of $100 billion. It is the largest ever IPO in corporate history anywhere in the world. 8 years. That is scale. And the reason the company is going to scale so fast is because there is an innovation that is in their DNA. Innovation is, again, not about creating new products. Let me ask another question. When was the telephone invented? Yeah, you can start Googling. Okay, so if you finish Googling, I actually don't care about the answer. Let me ask another question. When was the automobile invented? I see nobody is Googling because you know I don't care about the answer. That's good. Many, many, many years back. We're not interested in the answer. Similarly, somebody many, many years back combined the two and said, can you pick up the phone and call an automobile? Can you pick up the phone and hail a taxi? 60, 70 years back, people were doing it in America. It was no big deal. What does Uber do? You basically pick up the phone and call a taxi. So for all the talk about how it is a brilliantly innovative company and they built a great product, the fact of the matter is they've simply done what people were doing 100 years back, which is you pick up the phone and you call a taxi. But what have they done it? They've done it in a manner that is better, that is faster, and that is cheaper. So the essence of innovation is that, and this is true whether the company is large, medium, small, or a startup, is if you do anything that makes your product or service better, faster, cheaper than competition, then you're innovating. That's all. So don't put very complex definitions of innovation. Some companies start hiring CIO, which is the Chief Innovation Officer. It doesn't matter. I think the key is, can I think of things that I can make my product better, faster, cheaper? The thing is, how many can you do at the same time? Which means if you're making your product better than competition, then that's fine. If you're making your product faster than competition, that's fine. If you're making it cheaper than competition, that's fine. But if you can do better and faster, better and cheaper, faster and cheaper at the same time, then I think you have a great product or a service. The key is a company like Uber is able to do all three at the same time. This is the essence of innovation. And if you innovate like this, scale will follow. But the key to scale are two things. The key to scale are two things. A, speed. How fast can you reach? And B, how quickly, how can you hire talent and keep them with you? Somebody spoke about talent in the morning, which is very useful. So some of those principles apply here. Getting good talent is a big challenge, especially if you're a startup.